All right, hello everyone, and welcome back. Hope your day has been going pretty good. I've been, just sort of looking over the stuff. Just got back from work not too long ago, and I'm ready to dive right back into some more modeling. God, it is very refreshing to be inside of Maya after using Max all day. It's just my preference. I know people don't like when you bring up comparing them. They definitely both have their pros and cons, but it feels so comfy here looking at this toolbar. It's nice. It's definitely nice. Anyways, what are we doing today? We are continuing out this blockout slash mid poly. What I've been doing after every single chapter, and what I encourage you guys to do after doing a big chunk is to go back and look at your references. If I was giving myself homework, these would be the corrections I'd be giving myself. Little things like this piece that we made earlier isn't totally accurate. Really quick fix though. And then this is just more highlighting things that are kind of hard to see. So let's put that to the side. The thing I was talking about that we're going to have to fix is this here. If we look at the reference, it kind of goes down and then curves. And ours is very, very thin and then curves like so. Let me just move this over here and find some reference that better explains what I'm talking about. It's just one of those angles where it's super hard to see. But yeah, it's definitely smoother. And it's like this, this like natural curve here, which ours is not at all. So we're gonna have to go and fix that. Like I said, very quick. We also need to lower this and make it more consistently thick. This part here that we made, I'm actually just going to chop off. It'd probably be easier to just do it this way. So let's go ahead and shift right click, fill this hole. Snap these verts back. Looks like this edge is kind of funky because of all the stuff we did. So yeah, let's just clean this up. Merging those. So yeah, what I want to do is essentially lower this all a little bit, which would have been nicer to catch a bit earlier on, because it always, the more stuff you have attached to it, the more complicated it's going to be. But oh well, we have what we have right now, and we've kind of got to work with it. Right, actually, before I select all that, I'm going to have to delete these and do the same over here. Is that a hole or is that a face? Very... Is that just the angle? Yeah, okay. Sorry, I was looking at it. I'm just like, is that the face there? Let's fill that up. Protect snapping as we do. And then give it a good old merge. I'm just gonna auto harden. So that's pretty quick. So yeah, now we can sort of extend this down by grabbing these guys. And we're definitely gonna run into a bit of an issue there, but we can just pull everything back. It should be pretty easy to fix all of that. Actually, looking at the reference, it seems like there's like a lip, and then it actually extrudes more like this anyways, so that kind of works in our favor. I'm just looking off of our good friend, this 3D model here. So that definitely works out in our favor. So I'm going to go ahead and straighten this out again. And another thing is it definitely seems to be a lot thinner than we currently have it. I know we definitely can't do too much because of how this setup is back here, but I'm just going to go ahead and grab these guys, and we'll see how flexible this is. I'm not expecting it to be giving us too much room to sort of mess around with. We also seem to have a weird... What is going on here? Oh, I think it's because there was that weird edge situation. No, let's undo that. So when we moved this guy, so before we move him, we might as well merge these up so they're not going to give us any trouble. There's a lot of weird stuff going on since we moved that. Okay, let's merge those, and as we can see, yeah, this is giving us some issues. I'm going to grab this edge and just sort of investigate. Okay, so it's just this one edge, so we can shift right click and move up and go to merge edges to center and just snap that down. And we're essentially getting just the same shape we had before. So when we merge all of that, and I saw some faces on top of faces. So let's see if we can delete anything. That definitely seems like it could go. And this face here as well. Just don't want that flickering going on. Right, so now we can do what we wanted and flatten out this back. This still has this kind of transition. I might even opt to pull it up a little bit more. Yeah, and I'm going to want to straighten out this back. So we're just coming full circle at this point where we can essentially grab these faces and scale them. So yeah, this is what I was worried about. Essentially, we can solve that just by what would be the best way to go about this? I mean, I think we can probably get away with it if we select the faces in this sort of group. Yeah, it definitely has some flexibility. I'm just going to select one more loop of these guys, sort of push it in, just because I think we gave it way too much room. It's definitely a lot chunkier than the reference images. So let's thin this guy out. This is of course going to be an issue as well. So that's about as much as we can do. But now we can just select this guy. And there's always going to be a little bit of room we can play with. And honestly, that seems thin enough anyways. Cool. This smoothness, for the most part, seems pretty accurate. I can just sort of play with the edge loop to soften it out a little bit. And yeah, we should be good to go. Cool. Smoothing seems weird. Auto smooth will take care of that. What else did we have to do with this? Right, we needed to be a curved transition rather than the straight one we had, which should be pretty easy. Another thing I noted when looking at this is I think ours isn't sticking out far enough. So I'm just going to grab these verts here and pull it out a little bit further. It definitely seemed like in a lot of the reference it's sticking out past this ruler part by a decent amount. Not a ton or anything, and it's hard to tell because this whole back section I believe moves as you're typing, right? So still in most references it's coming out a little bit more. So that's good. I think right about there is fine, and then on this side, just about there should do it. And we can go ahead and give it that curved piece. The reason I haven't deleted these bottom faces is because it kind of looks like there's a bit of a dip before it curves, which is good. And we can use this edge to our advantage in that case. I do want to raise it up. Just kind of have a little dip here. And we can use this as a point of extrusion. So I think I'm just going to work on this side and then duplicate it over once we're done. Even though it's not symmetrical, it'll get us the desired shape we're going for. So just holding shift and clicking and dragging to get that out. And then doing it again. Except for this time I'm going to take this edge in and radically reduce the size so that I can once again click and drag with shift. Yeah, I'm going to want to go ahead then and snap this edge here so it's like a smooth transition in, and then we can sort of average this out with this edge loop. Of course we're going to have to merge those vertices, or it's just going to be faces inside of faces. Let's give this guy a nice bevel just to give it a little bit of softness. I might want to adjust the size first. Always make sure that you're comfortable with the dimensions before you're beveling anything. I might even want to just have it flush and then bevel. I think that's going to give it a better look overall. It also makes me want to pull this in a little bit. Might just be a little too much in general. Yeah, that's starting to be a bit more like what I'm wanting. Yeah, that definitely seems to be matching the overall shape. We're going to duplicate this over, so we might as well save ourselves a headache by cleaning it up now. Just grabbing these edges and vertex snapping them over. We can of course then go and merge our vertices. Hit it with a nice auto smooth. And boom, that piece is done. To get this over, what would be the easiest way? We could probably use our good pal, the Smart Mesh tools. I love this tool set so much. That's one of the things that I like about Max is I think it's shift dragging is pretty much smart duplicate. The problem is at work my hotkeys are so messed up. I need to put aside some time to get everything working, so I think I accidentally deleted that. Anyways, I just selected those faces and hit smart duplicate to get a copy of this as a different mesh. We can then mirror it over. The easiest way to do that would be to freeze our transformations, delete history, and then we know that this red arrow is the x-axis because we can see it in the bottom left. So then here in our channel box editor, scale, we can just make it -1, essentially flipping it over in the way the arrow is pointing. I'm going to move our pivot to this corner so I can snap it to the end. I'm doing that because this is flush with the end, so I want to make this flush with the end. Now all we really have to do is cut a hole here so that we can sew it in. Just making sure that there's no geometry on the back there. I'm just going into my cut tool, snapping this here. Just want to make sure that this is perfectly level, deleting the face behind it. And now if we combine these two, we can go ahead and merge those vertices, and they should, yep, just be one. Perfect. Cool, so that piece should be totally done now. And we can move on. So as you remember in the previous part, I was numbering a bunch of things. We left at number 4, so it's just these two cylindrical pieces that are stretching across. That's right over this sort of U. Of course, these pieces are pretty straightforward and easy to throw together, so that's definitely not going to take too long. I want to see if we have some proper reference of them. It would be these two guys here. This is our key reference, so one here and one here. Yeah, those two guys there. So that's a pretty good shot, and they both seem to be sort of encompassed in this larger metal. I'm not quite sure what you'd call that. I guess it's something that you can pop open. So I'm going to call it a lever for the sake of this. But anyways, we're going to be making these two cylindrical pieces, and then later on when we make this lever, we're probably going to end up combining the geometry to make it one piece. For now though, we're just going to be putting the cylinders there for mostly scale reasons. So that's pretty easy. I'm just putting in a cylinder and holding J, rotating, making sure it's 90 degrees. We can just sort of start molding this into place now. I'm just trying to get a good feel for where exactly it's resting. So it is floating. In the references I can see like it's not resting on anything. And it seems to be about here. I want to see if there's any good reference that shows if it's level to the side or not. But it doesn't seem to be sticking out too far in any reference images, so that's usually a good sign. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'll make it more or less flush with the side. Yeah, this is a pretty good reference for it. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay, I'm just going to keep this off over here. This thickness seems about right. But it does get bigger at the ends, where it does merge with that sort of lever. So I'm going to add in a edge loop right about here. Shifts double click to select the whole ring, and we can hit Control E to extrude that out. So this is going to end up being a bolt later, so I want to select these faces. For some reason, grow selection wasn't working, so I got to do it the old-fashioned way. Because I know a bolt's going to go in here, so I'm going to extrude it in. And even though we're going to fill it with a bolt, the reason I'm doing this is similar to this object up here, is because when we smooth it inside a ZBrush, having these sort of edge spacings is going to bevel in, and it's going to be very, very noticeable. So I'm going to go ahead and set it up that way. And then I kind of want to just thin this out a little bit. And I might even say that this whole section is a little bit too thick. Just gonna scooch them in a little. Okay, looking not too shabby. Maybe not actually. The more I look at every reference, it's definitely sticking out a little bit on all of them. As well as if I can get the object raised up a little bit. So I'm going to leave it like that for now, positioning wise. What I am going to do is cut this guy in half. And you guys know the drill. We're going to be mirroring them over. So I'm going to put the pivot right in the middle. Freeze transformations, delete history, and we can mirror it on X. Good old merge vertices and control backspace will get rid of that edge right there. And now we have this set up on both sides, exactly how we want. So let's kind of take a better look at our positioning for the second one of this. It seems like one's much further back and then one's much closer to kind of where we have it right now. So I'm looking at my reference. It seems like one kind of raised up a little bit, and then one like so, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, like readjusting the position on this is going to take like no time at all, so I'm going to leave it like that for now. Let's see how else we sort of had this set up. So the way that I initially planned this was to sort of do the whole connection right now. But as I was looking further into it, I saw that this connection piece, this connection piece is part of this much larger metal piece here. But I suppose they're not actually one. Like they're detached from each other. So I might as well, we might as well rather just make it right now. There's no harm in doing so. And then we just have to make sure it connects to roughly right about here. So let's see what the best way to do that would be. And I also believe it's different on both sides. Yep, we only have to make it on just this one side, which is pretty good. It's definitely gonna make it a little bit easier. So no complaints from me on that. I just want to make sure my positioning on everything is right. Back, up, it curves up, hooks around. It kind of seems like it's like hollow, like it's like this is one side, this is the other, but then at some point it transitions into just one part here. That should be an interesting one to make. But regardless, getting that shape in general doesn't seem too difficult. So yeah, let's just go for it. I think the easiest way to do this would be to combine these two guys. So I just selected them, combine. I'm also going to save in case something messes up. Cool. And yeah, it kind of seems like a thin strip combining these two that then curves up. So in order to make that, I'm going to add an edge loop on both sides. Let's just make sure they're level. Just sort of peeking at the reference. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, it kind of seems like it's connected between these two parts that are extruded out. So then, the best way we could probably do that is delete some faces and bridge it over. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Delete those guys. I'm just selecting these open edge loops, and if we shift right click, we can do a good old bridge. Connect those guys over. And then by adding an edge loop in the middle, we can just essentially, yeah, give that a little bit of roundness. Bevel it out. Seems to be giving us a similar shape. I do kind of want to play with how far down we're putting it. Something like that seems about right. I'm just trying to get the general shape right now, and then I'll hollow it out in just a moment. So there's that. Of course, having all these edges is kind of annoying, so we might want to close that off before it gets too crazy. Should probably do that before we bevel it. Okay, that's one side. And the second side. Okay. So shift right click, merge vertices. Just makes it infinitely easier to work with this way. Round it out. And now we need the larger, almost like a quarter of a pipe that then extrudes over. It also extrudes to line up with this being a bit further out. So I'm just going to pull this up a little bit so we can hook it, send it across, and have it meet up here. This is one of those things where it's kind of like we're going to have to sort of adjust the scale on several things at once as we're going. So it should be interesting to see how all of this turns out, because it's like until we sort of have at least everything existing, it's kind of hard to tell where the spacing is on everything. So the only way to really solve that is to just sort of go and get at it. The part that I'm working on right now would be this curve. So it's kind of like a quarter of a pipe, goes over up and meets up with this black bar we just extended out. So I'm curious to see if we could actually just utilize a pipe to do just that. If I go to polygon primitives, pipe, we can scale this guy up. And since we're only using a quarter of it, I don't mind raising the subdivisions at all. Just because it's 40, we're realistically using a quarter of that. We're only using 10. Just going to go into my top view just so I can confidently cut this into pieces. And then spacebar, getting back. Cool. Oh man, this is the same problem as before. I'm gonna scale this up before I do any of that. I'm gonna get this into position, and eyeball the thickness of the pipe before I delete anything, just because it's going to affect how I'm able to scale it and where the gizmo goes. Okay. Just really roughly getting it into place. Because we're essentially just taking this component. We need it to be not as high, but almost as high as this. So let's go into side view. A trick that a buddy of mine showed me is, say everything's kind of scaled out. If you hit Shift F, it'll zoom in on all the different views here. Super useful. Right, so this is lined up to directly in this middle part of the grid. We need this to go halfway up. About there, because we also were going to extend it and then extend it up. So we need a little bit of wiggle room, but not a ton or anything like that. Okay, so that's in place. Now I want this thickness to match this thickness, which it seems to be doing fairly well. Just going to thin it out a little bit. With all that in place, I can pretty confidently work with the geometry that we have. So let's see if we can just sort of cut out some faces, because obviously we don't want to have to do like a weird boolean or anything. It doesn't seem like we're gonna be that lucky. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, just to match the thickness of the other one. And I'm vertex snapping these sides so that they're the same thickness. And we're just going to sort of manually weld this guy on there. Okay. So that's pretty centered. I'm just going to grab these verts and vertex snap them to the open hole that we made. Yeah, now we're going to have to make some cuts. So Control Shift X, getting our cut tool. And we're just going to cut that piece out. I'm just essentially tracing over the edges that are already there. Cool. And now we can do a bit more vertex snapping. Followed by a merge, or combine, and now we merge. Okay, cool. Just looking at the reference, gonna extrude up, out, up, and wiggle our way over there pretty much. So up a little bit. The reason I'm doing that is so that I can grab, well, first of all, these edges and fill hole. Secondly, so I can extrude this guy out sideways. Doesn't seem like a ton, maybe about that much. Give or take, maybe a little bit more. Then extruding up again, and then it's gonna hang over the edge. Oh, this is also really cool because it's giving us a pretty clear visual indicator that this needs to be out a little bit more because it's going to have to flop over the side of this. So this is where we can start to sort of play with how far out things are, because I know that this guy's going to come on and rest over to the left because it's resting on top of this. And it can't be resting on it if they're not positioned properly. So I'm going to grab these verts, move it over a little bit. I can even snap it so I know for sure there's enough room. And just start to move things around. I can pull this forward a little bit. Just because this has to hang over. I'm looking... I'd love to see like a bird's eye view of it. But yeah, it comes up and it hangs over top. And I'm trying to get a gauge for this spacing here and wondering where my spacing is off. I think... My spacing is off. I think I can pull this closer. Is that it? But also something about this, I feel like this should be higher up in general. I kind of want to just grab all these verts. And go and do something maybe like that. Yeah, it's starting to seem like that's probably the spacing. One of these is directly over top of the U, as we see in some of this reference here. And then one of them is much further back, which I'm even tempted to take this guy and send him further back and then sort of massage this part out. Like so. And I'm definitely gonna have to return to this to kind of fix that shape up. It's definitely not ideal. But just for now, to get a rough gauge, I'm going to put an edge loop here and just extrude that over. Up, across, up, over. I think ours is much more horizontal than vertical. That might be a problem. I'm going to go ahead and delete these edge loops so we can start this part from scratch. Put one in the middle and pull it down like that. Get a fresh, smooth bevel in there. Oh, this is a great reference. Okay, I'm gonna keep this right here. And it kind of seems that we got this more or less. This part doesn't seem to be as rounded. And then this is actually angled up, so that might be where we can change things up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and delete every one of these, or every other one of these edges, because what we can actually do is Just massage it so it's more vertical like so. And then the thickness is also something I'm questioning. This one seems very thin. Let's see if I should adjust for that as well. Definitely seems like ours is much more on the thick side. So let's select all these faces. And scale it in. Just trying to match this. When we scale it in, it kind of makes me want to adjust a few other things. So we can, of course, match this thickness and bring this down. We can, of course, pull this in now, so it's further away. Can shrink this down. This edge is just supposed to be like that. What else can we do? I mean, we're gonna have to get to this guy eventually, but I'm just trying to get the size on everything. This one also seems like it's much further back, and it seems much higher up, which is interesting. I kind of want to adjust the height of it like so, and play with that. Just a lot of trial and error with this part, honestly, but I think it's kind of needed because so many parts are relying on this, and this is relying on so many parts. Let's see. Sorry if I'm being kind of quiet. I'm just trying to get the... view of it as accurate as possible. Looking through reference images, and they all seem slightly different, which I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not, because it means, hey, I guess we have a bit more freedom, but it also means it's harder to tell exactly what's going on. But if that's the case, I guess it also means we can just sort of do what works best. And I think what works best in this situation is to take these verts, as well as these, and just sort of move these guys over. Actually, no, I think that's what it is. I think that's what's visually off. This is too high. It's taking up too much space. It looks kind of odd. It should be more... should be more like that. Okay. Let's try and work with that for now. And then I even feel a bit more comfortable pulling this out a bit more if we really have to. Just massaging that guy out. And let's start actually making this shape a little bit better. Where was that good reference we were looking at? This guy. I'm just going to be working on this top shape. It seems like we can even lower this. Raise this guy up. Starting to find some smoother shapes in here. I'm gonna go ahead and bevel this. Whenever you see an edge like this, you might as well just snap it over and merge it. Just because the silhouette change is so minute, like you might as well just save the geometry. I'm just going to continue to soften this out as we go as well. Just something to note. I'm just trying to find out what's visually off about it, and I guess I could keep this in the corner, but it might just be the verticality of it all. Like this seems to be going up much sooner, but this is stretched too thin. Oh man. Like similar to that. I guess I don't know too much to comment on right now, so I'm sorry if it's a little quiet at this point. I'm just trying to figure this out. Because this seems alright. It's just mostly this. Like I want it to go vertical, but I don't want it to be hanging so far. Which I guess means that I made this whole thing a bit too wide. There's really no getting around that. So let's go ahead and grab this. Scale it in a little bit. Which honestly doesn't take really any time at all. Because then what we can do is we can bring this in. Like so. I'm going to have to work on smoothing these out, but just as kind of like a rough. Like it's definitely much better. This I want to thin out. Okay, yeah, that's looking a lot better since we thinned all that out. It's definitely not much needed. Kind of compresses everything together as well. Cool. So now we can go back to working on this sort of palette shape at the top. Pretty simple, to be honest. We're going to raise it up. Same with the bottom face. Might as well do verts to keep it cleaner. And it kind of just looks like this is extruded out on the side. And then once more and curved up. While this has a little bit of room on the edge. I do want to pull this in a little bit. It's because it's a little bit too thick. And then we might as well snap these guys over. Merge them all. I'm also thinking though, because this seems to be coming up and wrapping into it, so we might have to actually break these guys off for a quick second. I'm just selecting these top faces, shift right click extrude, center pivot, and I'm actually just going to snap it like this and delete this face. You'll see why in just a second. So I can extrude this up, and it's kind of sticking into the side now. A little bit of cleanup is going to be needed, but if I fill hole, fill this hole, and then delete this face, just so everything is corresponding correctly with each other. Oh, wait 1 second. Bridge this face. I need this hole to be open because we have an open hole on this side where we're going to connect them and merge them together. The reason I have it like this is so that when we smooth it, it's going to just sort of like smooth over the edge. Just going to make for a nice, much nicer bevel. Mesh combine, shift right click vertex, merge vertices. Like if I hit 3, you'll get a very crude example of it where it's kind of smoothing over the edge. But yeah, that's essentially what I'm going for. Let's save again, and we can keep going. Just little non-important things, but I kind of want to raise this side just so it's a bit of a curve. Yeah, I'm looking at this reference. It's also interesting because it seems like there's a bunch of these parts going through, but we'll get there when we get there. They definitely seem to be present, so we'll flesh that out after we have all of our main components in. So that's 4 and 5. 6 is just another cylindrical piece at the end. This one seems much easier to take care of. So it looks like it's kind of resting against here, which is pretty simple. It definitely seems to also be much longer. Like this guy here is sticking out quite a bit. But essentially it's just a cylinder that's kind of hollowed out, which, yeah, compared to the last thing, should definitely be like a breath of fresh air. This guy was a bit more tricky than I expected, but it's just kind of getting it to match the look as well as fit everything. It's a bit tricky, but we seem to get it done, which is fine. Let's get this guy into place. As I mentioned, he just kind of seems to be resting up against this guy here. So lots of things that are relying on other things now. We're going to really start to see if our placement and spacing is working out for us. If not, of course, we can always change things, but this is really going to show us if we're going to have to do a decent amount of work to fix what we've made so far. So this pipe seems pretty thick. I'm going to keep it like that for now. So it's extending past, which is good. It's also hollow. Now, of course, when we actually do the geometry for this, we're not going to make it fully hollow. We can just bake that information down, like that's totally fine. for the sake of this, what I'm going to do is just make sure we have both these ends selected. And the way that I did that was I selected the whole thing, deselected the middle. Really quick way to get the ends. Can hit Control E to extrude, and we can just offset to the middle. Let's do like a 0.45, and then we can hit Control E again and just sort of bring this in. Like that far is plenty, and then I'm going to just offset it in a tiny bit. If that's the right way. I suppose I could just scale it like so. Yep. And then this also seems very rounded, so I'm going to go ahead and manually just add in some bevels. Turn the fraction up, turn up the segments a little bit. Just trying to get that sort of rounded shape to it. Seems like a decently round pipe. Hit that with an auto smooth. Nice. What else is something where you have to tackle? So that's 6. 7 would be this guy. I'm going to put number 7 off because it seems very reliant on number 8. Number 8 is this big piece here, which is present on both sides. We have a lot of good reference for it, actually, which is kind of refreshing with this. I'm trying to see if it's like hollow underneath. I imagine it is, but I don't think we ever really find an angle where we're looking at it. This is an upside down one where it's slightly out of view. Same here. But yeah, it doesn't look like we're ever looking directly under it. It has some openings on the side for these levers. Regardless, should be all right. I think it is asymmetrical. This side doesn't have an opening for a lever, while this one does. Something to keep in mind when looking at something like this. Like this one, yeah, this switch is sticking out of it. This one doesn't have it. It seems to be accommodating this larger T piece as well as this rounded segment. So I guess we should go ahead and start blocking this guy in. So where does it start and where does it end? It seems to start right after this piece and end right around where this guy is. So that's pretty good. We have a pretty solid understanding of its size and scale. Yeah, we know for a fact that it's resting here. The back of it is resting on a piece we haven't made yet. But that's okay, because that means that that next piece that it hasn't been made for yet, or the next piece that hasn't been made, we can reference this current piece as a location that we can sort of build out of. So that's great. The shape itself is pretty simple for the most part. The only major challenges are going to be, of course, I would say the biggest challenge is going to be the differences from side to side and just sort of fully understanding what exactly is even going on. I'm going to go ahead and poke face, so we sort of have a center to work with. I'm going to snap this guy here. Based on the reference, it seems to be above at all times. Let me double check that. No, I guess it is kind of hanging. Starts above, then goes to hanging over past the lever. Yeah, that's a good reference there. So let's start it above. have it snug up here. Doesn't seem too thick or anything. But it is definitely a bit taller. And like I said, it seems to go back to this guy. So for now, I'm just going to have it centered here. That seems pretty big. I guess that does follow the reference, though. It does seem like a rather large piece. Like when we look at this, it looks slightly larger than even half, I would say. So that is kind of accurate. I have an alarm going off right now. That's weird. Sorry about that. Let's see. What's the best way to go about this? Have it above. It's hanging over the edges slightly, which I currently have set up. It stays the same height, but it drops down after this lever. This lever seems to be lined up with this bolt here. So I can put in an edge loop. I might even push it back a little bit. And we can extrude this down. It then sort of has this tapering, I guess you could call it, at the end. So let's go ahead and accommodate for that. Similar to so, it also comes in on this side. And that's the basics of it. It's a tricky shape to nail. I'm going to want to, take this face and pull it back further, just because I know it's going to at least be going to there. So let's see, how can we make this look better? I think it first of all needs to be a little bit thicker. This part also seems to be going down further in some of the references. This is also going to be opening up to be hollow, so I should probably set that up as well. Just looking off of this. This one seems to be different on this side, where it's open on the thinner part. There's bolts on the top of it. But I guess in general, it is quite a simple shape. Let's go ahead and just smooth this out slightly. And same with this. I think this will probably make a bit of a difference. And then once we hollow it out, I think a lot of the changes will be a lot more noticeable. I guess I just want to make sure the thickness is just right before I do that, because that's when it's going to be a lot harder to work with. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to isolate it. Probably going to add an edge loop in the middle and bevel it so we can get some edges. Let's select these two guys so then we can sort of scale in and out and figure out how thick do we want this. Based on the reference, it looks pretty thin. But there's nothing really good. I'm just gauging it off of like this little shadow. So it looks like it would be about this thin. I know when I smooth it, it's going to become thinner, so I want to accommodate for that. So about so. Let's isolate this again. And just delete these faces. Because I believe, yeah, the back is closed off. Do we have a shot of the back? They seem to be opened up on the back. So we can follow in that. Yeah, and this is just going to be one of those cases where it's a bit of an awkward angle, but I'm just sort of extruding these edges up to match. Here. Nothing too crazy, I'm just extruding. My thought process here is if I can extrude this up, I can match this line here, which I can then extrude up together and bridge over at the top. And the reason I want to do all of that is because then I know all the verts are properly connected. So if I can get it all in a straight line, I'm going to be pretty happy with that. Merge all of that. We can go ahead and snap these guys over. And now, as I was saying, we can grab these edges, now that they're level, extrude them up. Scale it in a little bit. Seems like there were some issues. Yeah, this side seems like it might be. Oh, that's why. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna have to extrude this side in and this side in as well, because we can't have it just being a thin plane, of course. So let's extrude this in. And we're gonna have to connect it like we've been doing this whole time, edge over edge. Problem that we can't leave sort of unresolved. So just adding a slice over the big edge and closing it off and putting it over the small edge. Gonna have to do the same thing here. And now we should be able to merge everything. Select all these edges. Yep, so it's one edge loop now. Extrude up. And cap that off with a fill hole. Cool, so we hollowed that guy out. It fits on there properly. We're gonna have a lever right here, so we can actually even put a cut here. I'm just cutting through, double clicking to select the whole edge loop and flattening it out by scaling. And based on the reference that I'm seeing, this is kind of aligned with where it falls off. And I can drag this down a little bit, and the lever is going to be sticking in right here. I might even want to pull this forward. It seems like the gap isn't that big. Interesting. Okay, so if I get this straight, this gap houses a lever, but it also houses this curved piece of metal, which is holding this large cylindrical tube. So that's all connected. If I remember correctly, this tube, which is attached to the larger one, was what I was going to do. I'm glad that I held off on that. For now, I think we're going to have to tackle this lever. And then once that's done, probably the large cylinder, and then we can sort of build pretty much everything else in the back off of that. Once that large cylinder is in place, by large cylinder, I'm of course referring to this large piece of geometry here, everything's going to sort of start to have a proper home and a place to be built off of. So everything's going to start to fit a bit more snug and a bit more cozy. For the sake of this part, I think I'm going to finish off this lever. It's getting kind of late, and I got to get up for work tomorrow morning pretty early. But I'm just looking at this reference and thinking of a place to stick the lever. In the reference, it kind of looks like the lever is just being stuck into the metal piece that's being rounded about the cylinder. I don't know how accurate that is, but visually that's what I can tell it to be doing. So for now, I'm going to just sort of stick with that. And we can get that lever in place, and then we can save and call it apart. So kind of going back to me saying we can wrap this up in maybe 2 more parts might have been a bit of an exaggeration. I think we are just going to sort of go as we go and see how long it takes. There's no rush to get this done. But yeah, I am happy with the progress we're making. So let's go ahead and save. Okay, and the lever, right. Okay, there's a big bolt. Seems to be hovering a little bit. Straight, curved, swooshy sort of wave shape. We got this. Easy. Let's start off with a cube. We can pretty much use this for just about anything. In this case, we're going to use it for the main stem of the lever. Thin it out. Kind of position it roughly here. Hold J to snap at 45 or 30 in this case. Maybe 45 would be better. Can then extrude. Seems to be just peeking over the edge. I'm glad our pivot is still here. Can raise it up a little bit. I think the whole thing needs to be thinned out quite a bit. Because we're going to have to curve it, so I don't want it to be as long. This bottom part is also very round. Easiest way to do that, of course, grab these 2 edges, hit it with a bevel, just round it out completely. So yeah, with this, I'm just going to shift drag, rotate, scale in, and repeat. Just get a really tight, rotation on that. Not too bad. Might want to thicken it up a little bit. And then we could even just borrow from this, to be honest. We've had this open the whole time, so we might as well use it. Let's select these faces. Smart duplicate. Center. And we might have to do a little bit of tweaking, but it's gonna just sort of be a good starting point nevertheless. So I'm just trying to match this size with this size so I can just sort of have a place to plug it into. Okay, so that already has that deleted. We can go in here, delete this face. I'm going to actually move the pivot here and snap it to the corner. And let's just get some crude scaling in here. We're of course matching this, and this has already gotten us most of the way. Just gotta make sure we snap everything. Thin this out. We're gonna have to, of course, bring this in a little bit more. And just sort of make sure all of these are even and snapped appropriately. So this is going up. I want it to be a bit more of a wave shape, so it's going up and then down. This one is, ooh, what is going on here? Did I accidentally extrude, I think? Yeah, that must have been it. This one's starting to go down and then curves up. Okay. Let's thin this whole thing out. It's quite chunky. And then when we smooth that, it should do quite a bit for us. I'm going to isolate this just to clean it up. I don't want to rely 100% on smoothing, so we can take this a little bit further right now. Oop. All right. So it's like a nice wave. Let's take the big dips and give them a bevel. The mini ones, give them a bevel. Okay, and now we can combine it all. Mesh, combine. Select all the vertices, merge them. I still kind of want to thin it out a little bit. And then that just sort of leaves the bolt / connection piece. Should be pretty quick. We can just go ahead and poke face. Something to work with. Let's get a quick cylinder in here. So the cylinder is going to act as our connection piece on the inside. We just don't want it floating. So let's get this face, snap it here. This piece we can snap here. We can actually like cut a hole out of this or something when we're doing it properly, so it kind of looks like it has a actual sort of location that it can be slotted into. But for now I think that's fine. I might want to add a bit to it by scaling it in, adding an edge loop here, and then extruding this part just so it seems like there's a bit more mechanical stuff going on. We don't have any clear reference of what's going on in here, So it's something like this. I don't really mind just saying, hey, this is interesting. If I make these two different pieces, like, people are going to be none the wiser. No one's really looking there to begin with. But let's see if we should lower this. Kind of want to rotate this sort of tab at the top. It seems to be a little too angular for my liking. Something more like that seems to make more sense. And then we just need a bolt here on the end. So to do that, I'm just going to duplicate this guy. Put him on there. This seems to be like some weird geometry, so I have no idea where that went. Let's just get another one of these guys in here. So I hope you guys don't mind for this, definitely the second half of this, me not commenting as much. I'm just trying to sort of do a basic walkthrough of what's going on at this point. It doesn't seem like there's too many new techniques I'm going to have to really go over in the making of at least the next few things. It's more like the theory behind it and why I'm sort of doing what I'm doing. That's mostly what I'm trying to comment on. But the actual things like hotkeys and like pieces of advice are mostly the same as they were in the first like part or two. So I hope you guys understand that. But I think that'll do it for this piece. Yeah, that should be good for now. We're gonna have to do the corresponding one on the other side in the next part. Then we can do the large cylinder, continue to sort of build up from there, get the keys done, and then we can get to the fun stuff. I've been dying to get to the high poly. Like I really want to get this part done because everyone knows high poly textures and like lighting is exciting. I also really like baking. This is probably like the hardest / most tedious part of it. But we're definitely making good progress. So if you're following along, give yourself a little pat on the back. We're doing pretty good. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next part. Thank you guys for watching. And yeah, see ya.